What our Out in the Open panel has to say about this tonight: Democratic strategist Morris Reed, Michelle Bernard, president of the Independent Women's Forum, and Rachel Maddow, talk show host on Air America Radio. Glad to have all three of you with us.
Appreciate it.
Do you think this mother should have been accused of child abuse?
I do.
Does she deserve to have this boy back?
No.
She's been given multiple chances.
I think that it's about parent responsibility. I think that in America, we sort of skirt this issue. It's funny that the Brits are taking the lead on this, but I think this kid should be taken from the home. If it was bruises or fire or alcohol or drugs, we would remove this child. I think we should have done the same thing.
Do you think that that's where the government belongs, in our homes? I mean, there are a lot of people who are saying that American parents should be really nervous about this tonight as we watch this play out in England.
Well, they should be worried about it, but you know, one of the things that Mimi said tonight that I agree with is it's a matter of personal responsibility. I've been ambivalent about it. I've been thinking about it. Clearly, if she were starving her child to death, the authorities should come in there and take the child. But I think that it's in the best interest of the child to remain with his mother, and for his mother to learn how to feed him properly. And maybe this worldwide ridicule and knowing that she's killing her son is enough. I wish that people would go after child molesters and child predators the way that they are going after this child's mother.
Sure, but do you think this ridicule in the end means anything at all? I mean, do you think parents in America are going to be concerned they're going to be labeled as child abusers because they let their kids eat pizza 3 times a day?
I think the politicization of obesity is an interesting thing, because those of us who fight to keep our weight down, and those of us who worry about our own weight, and those of us who even worry about the overweightness of Americans in general, there's a lot of blame that goes with it. And this is a story that takes the blame kind of out of it, because the kids ate. And yeah, the kid says, I want another pork chop, and no, I don't want fruits and vegetables, and I want junk food. But we all know we're all mad at the mom. We're not mad at him. We realize this is a parenting issue. And obesity as a health problem makes this very clearly a question about whether or not this abuse is abusive enough for the state to come in and intervene. You can't blame the kid.
And also, we have to ask ourselves, is the state going to do any better than the mother? I mean, we could go from one extreme to the other. What kind of jeopardy do you put the child in by taking him out of his mother's home and putting him in some government-run facility?
Sure. Let's look at these statistics again to bring this back home to America. And once again, they're alarming. 22% of all Americans are obese. What is going to save us from ourselves here?
Nothing's going to save us from ourselves but ourselves. I think that Michelle made an interesting point that the government doesn't have a great track record if you look at the foster kid system. But this is alarming.
What would you do? Have police come in and you send these kids to a special place where they're put on a spa diet? I mean, how would that work?
I don't think you need that, but I do believe that since this is sort of out in the open and we're already talking about going after companies, we really need to look first at the parents. The parents are the guys. And it's funny to me that if your parent works out, you tend to work out. If your parents likes music, you tend to like music. So we look at our parents as our first role model, and if our parents are physically fit, more likely the kids will be physically fit.
What about imposing penalties on our health care policies so there really is a cause and effect here, and you know your health care costs will go up if you're putting your kid at a greater risk of getting diabetes? This kid is 3 to 4 times the normal size.
Right, and we can try to discipline parents around these sorts of things, but when it comes down to it, how are we going to make it so that 22% of Americans aren't obese? Well, we got to actually change things as a nation. I mean, we've got to stop subsidizing the kinds of companies that provide us processed food that make us fat. We've got to start making school lunches smarter. We've got to you've got to do stuff like invest in public transportation so people walk instead of get out of their cars. I mean, there's so many things that you could do as a country in terms of prioritizing this as a health issue that we haven't done. It's easy to get mad at one parent, but in terms of taking on obesity as an epidemic, we've got to get a handle on Archer Daniels Midland. We've got to get a handle on some of the food subsidies that are against our national health interests.
Charles got mad at today?
No.
McDonald's.
Yeah.
Well, he actually said rather casually, well, maybe we should ban it.
But I mean, that's silly.
It's
so silly. About? Why not just, if you don't want your kids to be obese, don't take them to McDonald's. Why sue McDonald's? Just don't drive there.
Well,
don't go.
By the way, are 22% of Americans obese now as compared to 30 years ago because parents have gotten worse, or because American lifestyles have changed as a whole?
Well,
American lifestyles
are a much sitting in front of the
society.
TV, playing computer games. They don't exercise. They don't go out and have fun. It's the parents' responsibility. Don't sue McDonald's.
Got to move us all along. Stay right here. We got a lot more to talk about with our panel tonight. Out in the Open next is our Out in the Open panel, Democratic strategist Morris Reed, Independent Women's Forum President Michelle Bernard, and Air America Radio host Rachel Maddow. You are outnumbered tonight.
I am.
But I'm still not going to let you start first.
Great compliment. Great compliment.
So does Congress owe blacks an apology for slavery?
You know, I don't see. I read today a columnist said that they really have a dog in this fight, and I feel like I do too. As an African American, why not? I mean, why not apologize? We teach our 5-year-olds and our little, you know, our children, when you do something wrong, apologize for it, and I can't see why not. To me, the question is just so simple.
They're worried that an apology will open the door to reparations, and they don't want to talk reparations. And I think that's the resistance. Right?
Well, I think that's the resistance, but I also think people are pandering to elements in our society that none of us at this panel would probably want to go to dinner with anyway. I mean, it's really stupid. I think about.
You're talking about what? Members of the Klan? Is that what you mean?
Exactly. I mean, if George Makaka Allen could introduce a piece of legislation, or for the United States Senate to pass a resolution apologizing for the fact that the Senate never passed anti-lynching legislation earlier than they did, then the entire United States Congress or state legislatures can apologize for slavery.
I want you to listen to something.
I just have a different
real quickly,
though. I just think it's an empty promise. I don't want a sorry. You know what I would have rather that Congress did? Fund public education, make sure people had universal health care, make sure we had good schools. That's the real issue here. African Americans feel like they've been neglected. They've always been a second-class citizen. Don't give me an empty promise. Give me what I want, which is a good education, health care, and safe schools and safe community. That's more important to me than an empty promise that's going to be watered down, that's going to be politicized, and just going to cause more division.
What I want you all to listen to is something that a Virginia congressman had to say, Congressman Frank Hargrove, and he said this back in January when that state was debating the issue. Let's listen.
Not a soul in this legislature had anything to do with slavery. It's harmful to society in general just to keep recycling this thing, which we all know and all despise and all have no respect for.
So he was essentially saying, get over it. There are many American families like mine that did not own white slaves. So why should we feel obligated to make that kind of an apology?
Why not apologize for the wrongs of your ancestors? There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think that what this gentleman said, he really should be embarrassed about. There are so many things that the African American population in this country is still dealing with from century after century. We know that race still matters in the United States. Let's apologize and let's just move forward. Let's talk about school choice. Let's talk about education reform. Let's talk about all of the things that we know matter to the African American community. And I think that if we were to see something, whether it is symbolic or not, the nation will just move forward, and we can get to a point where we really are being judged by the content of our character and not our skin color.
Michelle, let's not waste our time on this. I got to tell you, I feel very passionate about this. I spoke to my grandmother about this, and I really had to search my soul here because it's an empty promise. It's like saying saying that, okay, I'm going to vote for Harold Ford and then going to vote for the other guy. It's like I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear that Americans want to feel good about something. I want Americans to do something. I want America to say, look, if you really care about this, let's fund public education. If you really care about this, let's give decent health care. That would really make a difference, not an empty promise.
But it's not an empty promise. It has nothing to do with being an empty promise. If African Americans want to complain about things being an empty promise, go out and vote. Demand education reform. Demand the ability to have school choice. This has nothing to do with being an empty promise. Yes, it is a symbolic gesture, but what's the big deal?
Final thought. There's something that's not symbolic about this, is that slavery was an economic system. Slavery was the economic foundation of early America. Billions of dollars based on the slavery economy. We need to decide whether or not we're willing to give up some of the benefits that we still accrue from having based our economy on slaves and think about reparations. That's the hard question we need to get to.
And that's what you think this really is.
That's what I think this is really about.
Michelle Bernard, Morris Reed, Rachel Maddow, more to debate coming up.